Hello, my name is Chris Taylor, and I am a member of the West Michigan Woodworkers Guild. And tonight I'm going to present to you on how to get started in SketchUp, and specifically things I wish someone had taught me when I got started. I had a bumpy start to SketchUp, and these tips that I'm going to give you tonight will hopefully propel you and encourage you to learn it in the future. So I'm going to be presenting with a couple different styles tonight. I'm going to be using PowerPoint, and I'm also going to be using a live demonstration to show you how to make a table. But here is the overview of what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to walk you through why I use SketchUp, what I use SketchUp for, and what I don't. I'm going to go through quickly orienting yourself in SketchUp, and then we're going to create a basic table together with tools. And I'm going to assume for the most part that all of you watched the tutorial that I posted um, on Facebook that both I posted and Tom posted. We're going to walk through some simple tools tonight: the orbit and pan tool, rectangle tool, push pull tool, making components, and how to make separate parts of the table and then be able to move them in a way that SketchUp doesn't get confused when it's trying to group things together. And once you get those basic tools, you should be able to make quite a bit. And if we have enough time at the end, I'll stay on if you guys have questions, or even better yet, if you're seeing my basic demonstration and you have, for example, you go, "Hey, Chris, you could do this way more efficiently if you use this tool," or show me. I would love that. I am by no means an expert at SketchUp, but I do vividly remember the initial challenges that I had when I started, and I hope they help you tonight. So, why I use SketchUp? The big two right in front of you are money and time, and also communication, but we'll get back to that. And communication ties in with time and money as well. So, money. SketchUp, I think the thing I love the most about it is that it allows you to create cut lists for your projects very quickly and very accurately. So, right away, I'm spending less money on materials that I buy, and also, how many of you guys have ever, in terms of money and time, started assembling a cabinet or some other intricate project, and then you got distracted and you put a part on backwards or in the wrong orientation and you've already fastened it? Same here. And it is a maddening thing to do, especially if you spend a long time milling or getting that part ready. I have a sign in my shop in very bold letters that says orientation matters. And every time I walk in my shop, I look at it, and actually have a couple shelving things or little projects in my shop that I keep around, failed projects that have the wrong orientation, just so when I see it, I'm like, okay, let's not do that again. In SketchUp, as you'll see tonight, if I'm building a table, I take each part of the table and I assign it a certain color. So that way, when I'm in my assembly phases, I clearly label everything so I don't mess up the orientation. I label both the whole part, and sometimes I'll label or color different sides of the part in different colors so that way I can tell the orientation. So that's it in terms of money. I save in terms of cut lists and in terms of assembly. Now, time. The thing I love about SketchUp is that everything is in one place. And if I love a plan and something went so well, I can simply save it for later. I also print out my cut lists and designs and put them in a binder. I love computers, but in a way I don't trust them either, because if I spend all that time on a plan and my computer crashes, then it's good to have a backup either way. And I'll come back to this, but communication is a huge time saver with SketchUp. And having 3D renderings to show other people or customers or family members that you're building things for is life saving. And you may say right now, okay, Chris, you're talking about time. My I've been woodworking for 30 some years, and I have a plan, Chris, and I know how to design things, and I sketch it out, and then I list out the labels, and that works for me. And I'm here to say, perfect. If that works for you, go with it. But if you see something tonight that uh, makes you interested, try SketchUp. There's literally no cost other than time. And I can guarantee you that if you practice SketchUp and run your projects through it, you're going to find at least one or two things that you enjoy. So at least be open minded tonight. And like I said, yes, there is an initial investment in time to learn it. But the way I view SketchUp is kind of like a new tool that you have in your shop. My bandsaw is great at resawing pieces, and great for doing curved work, but it's not ideal for other tasks. SketchUp is just another tool in my arsenal that I can use to tackle projects or tasks. And of course, if you get a new bandsaw in your wood shop and you've never used one before, it's going to take some time to set it up, to tune it properly, to familiarize yourself with its basic functions, like how to take the blade off, how to adjust the throat just right, and all those things. SketchUp is the same way. And if you take some time to consistently practice it, I hope it will give you some benefit. So we talked about money and we talked about time. Another big one for me is communication. The majority of you, I think it's fair to say, that the average age of woodworkers in this group are people that have a lot of woodworking experience. And at this point, you are making things more for other people, like family members, than you are for yourself or your own family because you've made it already. And I know for myself personally, I just did a table a while back for some friends of mine, and she gave me some rough dimensions of what she would love and an overall color scheme and style. And I took those dimensions home and put them through SketchUp, and I showed her the diagram, and what I had written was completely different than the idea that she wanted. So, having brought her that design, she was at first perturbed and confused and a little bit frustrated, but once she saw what was on paper, we were able to make changes quickly, and it kind of snowballed from there as to the ideas that we had. And by the time I left, it took maybe 10 minutes total. We had a final design that we liked. I sent her a second copy later that day, and once I started my build, I didn't have to think about what it was going to look like or whether she was going to like it or whether it was exactly what she thought. If they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, a 3D diagram is worth 1,000 pictures. So, communication is huge for me with SketchUp. Um, I also love the convenience that SketchUp has. For me, I'm a busy dad. I've got three young kids, and maybe you guys have other things going on too. I love that I can sit down and use SketchUp for 10 minutes and not even make it out to my shop. Or let's say it's negative 15 degrees outside. I can sit inside and do that as well. So, backing it up, the why of why I love SketchUp: money, time, and communication. If you've got other things that you love or that make SketchUp valuable to you, I'd love for you guys to let me know. So, we are now getting into the demonstration part, and I'm going to pause it to get set up, and then I'll be right back with you guys. So, I lied to you guys. The next thing we were going to cover was what SketchUp is and what it is not for me personally. What SketchUp is not for me, it's not a solution to all my woodworking problems or woodworking challenges. Uh, Computers, especially CAD software, work in a zero tolerance environment. that object that you're putting together is the exact measurement every single time down to the thousands of thousands of thousands. And as you know, wood is an organic material and it behaves beautifully and very challengingly sometimes. Um, so you need to understand that SketchUp, the design you have is not going to be always what it comes, the exact measurements that come out in your project. It's just a rough guide. Wood is going to move and it's going to breathe, and you still have to measure and you have to check and be precise as you construct your uh, pieces. So next, we're going to jump right into SketchUp, and I'll show you guys what we're working on here. All right, we're back. So here is the rough table that we're going to make tonight. It's got a couple pieces. It's got the tabletop. It's got, let's see here. Let me unexplode this a second. We've got the tabletop right here. We've got some long aprons right there. We've got some side aprons right there. And we've got four legs. It's about as basic as it gets. So if we pull this table apart, I mean, you guys have seen so many tables and probably build so many of them. We pull the parts apart, we're going to get a tabletop there, and that's the undercarriage that we're going to have tonight. I think the most logical thing to talk about is how to orient ourselves in SketchUp a little bit first. If you've never used SketchUp, it's going to look like, no, it's going to look like this. You're going to click on your icon at the desktop. It's going to give you, the first time you use it, it might give you a template of what's going on. I'm going to use inches for tonight, and then you hit start using SketchUp. And the first thing you're going to see is this weird looking blue, green, red axes going on. You're going to navigate around, you're going to hit the O key, which is for orbit and pan. It is one of the most important tools that you're going to use. So O for orbit, and it brings up this little red and green. Now, it's not turning anything three-dimensionally right now because we don't have an object yet. But let's say I draw a rectangle. Now, when I hover, when I put my pan key over it, it will actually turn it. So that's the orbit key. And if you hold shift, you can change it to the grab or the pan tool, and it saves you one click. If you guys don't use keyboard shortcuts, please do. It makes you so much more efficient. So we got O for orbit, we got P for pan. And then that's what it will look like. When you guys are creating an object for the first time, I always recommend starting in this, I call it the magic corner. So we've got a horizontal axis, green, we've got a horizontal axis, uh, red right there, and you've got a blue vertical axis. These are really important because when you're moving later on, when we move our components around, you're going to use those colors to tell SketchUp whether you want to move an object this way or this way, especially if you don't want to zoom all out and spend 25 minutes putting a table together. So when we make our rectangles today, we're just going to start right at this corner. And if you look right here, I'm using my mouse wheel to zoom in, and I recommend you guys get a mouse if you don't have one, or if you want to use the zoom tool, it's right up here. I'm going to start at that spot, that origin place, and draw a rectangle. But right now I'm going to open my table that I already have built. Maybe. There we go. So here's my table that I have built. So let's get started, guys. Move this out of the way for now. So tonight we are going to make a table with the following dimensions. The top, I can explode this for you guys here. The top is going to be about 78 inches by 40 inches wide. The legs are going to be 34 inches tall by 2 inches wide. And the aprons, the long ones, are going to be about 70 inches by 1 inch wide. And I can't remember what the side ones are, but we'll work on that in just a second. So the first thing you guys are going to do tonight is we are going to, now that we know our pan and orbit tool, or O, we are going to move on to making basic rectangles. Rectangles are the basis of all woodworking, at least at the start. You know, you tell someone who's starting woodworking for the first time, what should you do? Make boxes. Make lots and lots of boxes, because most woodworking designs are, or basic woodworking designs are, combinations or uh, iterations of a box. So right here, we started our origin. We hit R for rectangle. Rectangle tool is also right up here. We start dragging and playing with some shapes. If you look down here in the dimensions tab, you will notice that when I'm dragging this out, it's expanding. When I'm doing this, I'm always looking for the longest dimension. Do you see 84 down there by 19 and 5/64? When I started SketchUp, I thought I had to be so precise, and I had to look at that, and I had to get everything. Okay, how do I get to 68? I'm so close. You don't need to do that. Just find your longest dimension, and we're making this tabletop. We're making it 78. So I want you to, once you let go of the mouse, you type 78 for 78 inches, comma, 40 for 40 inches wide. And it's going to bring you that dimension. So once again, start with R for rectangle, drag out till you find which way is the longer, 78, comma, 40. If you want to do it in feet, that's fine. You can do that. You could do like 7 feet by whatever, but I'm just going to use it just for tonight. 78 inches, 40. Now, I just hit space, by the way. That's one shortcut or select tool that I didn't talk to you. It's about right up here. Whenever you get done making something, you always got to hit that space bar and come back to it in order to select things. Okay, so I hit space. I'm selecting the top pane of this table here, this tabletop. Once it's grayed out, I'm going to push P for push pull. It's the push pull tool. Push P, and you notice it's going to change to that little guy right there. Push pull tool is right here. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to click and drag it up, and then I'm not going to care about how high it goes. I'm just going to let it go. And for this tabletop, I'm going to type 1 because I want it to be 1 inch tall. Now here's where most people get kind of confused or what to do next. They make this object and they just say, okay, I'm going to push it over here, but look what's happening. SketchUp is grabbing one of the faces and it's just manipulating the object. So what you do is I want you to hit space for select. I want you to triple click that whole thing to make sure that all the panes are selected. And once you do that, you're going to hit G for component. And what this is doing is it's telling SketchUp that this is an object that I don't want you to mess with unless I say so. I want you to keep it as the same object until I come in and edit it. And I'm going to write table up. That was G for component. I'm going to create it. Now, when I hit M for move, I can move it wherever I want and it doesn't change the top. You can also tell it's a component if it's highlighted blue. And what I'm going to do for now is, now that I've made my tabletop, I'm going to move it out of the way. I'm using the orbit tool. I'm going to hit M for move. I'm going to grab anywhere on it. I usually grab corners. I'm going to pull it. Do you guys notice how that cursor, or that line right there where it says on red axis? That's good. I want to watch that because when I'm moving an object from left to right, I want to keep it on that same plane. If I don't, it might end up way too high or low. I like to keep it right on that axis. So we've made the tabletops. Let's make ourselves some legs right now. We're also going to use another tool as well. So I hit space for select because I don't need to touch that anymore. I'm going to start at my origin or my magic corner. I'm going to make some legs that are, I'm going to go 2 inches, comma, by 2 inches, enter. I made myself some legs. I'm going to select that top pane, and I'm going to put P for push pull to make it into a box. I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to let it go. I'm going to type 34. And I'll put all these items or all these dimensions in a separate document that I send out. So I've got this table leg 2 inches by 2 inches by 34 inches. And now it's done. So I want to triple click it again and I want to make it a what? A component. So I hit G and I'm going to put table leg, enter for create. Now here's where things get even more fun and you can save yourself some more time. Instead of doing another rectangle, 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 you can save yourself some time. Hit space for select, select this thing, hit M for move, and then while you're highlighting it, I want you to hold control and drag it over, especially if you don't want to spend time copying the same components over and over and over again. Now I've got 2 of them and I let it go. Got 2. Now if I really want to get fancy, instead of doing one at a time, I click 1, hit shift and select both. Then I hit M and I move them over like this. And if you guys want to make each one by one just to practice, I recommend doing that. So we've got 4 legs now. I'm going to move those out of the way and I'm selecting all of them with my select tool like this, and I'm zooming out with my mouse wheel. I'm using the orbit tool. I'm going to hit M for move and just get those out of my way for right now. There's that red line again. Okay, now I need to make my aprons. So my apron is 70 inches long, and I'm just dragging until I can tell which way is the long dimension. 70 inches, so 70 comma, I'm going to make them 1 inch wide. Not sure what common aprons are, but we're going to go with that. I'm zooming down with my mouse wheel. I'm hitting shift to grab around. I'm selecting that top pane, and I'm hitting P for push pull to make it into a box. And then I want these aprons to be 4 inches tall. All right. Now what do I do once I have this object created? I make it a component. So I triple click again, I hit G for component, and I'll put long apron, create. Oh, I already have one in my other table, so I'm going to put long apron demo. I've got this item. I want to copy it, make another one that's exactly the same. So I hit M for move, and I highlight somewhere on it, and I hold control, and it will copy the item, and I can drag it wherever I want to go. So now I've got my long aprons. I'm going to select one of them or I hit space for select one of them, select the other one, then I'm going to hit M for move, hit O for orbit so I can zoom out a little bit, hit M for move again, and drag them somewhere where I want them. I think I'm going to move them here. Where's that green line? There it is, green line. Now I need to make my small aprons here. I'm actually going to need to look at this to tell my actual dimensions. I hit T for tape measure, which is a great tool. T for tape. If you look at the bottom right hand corner, you see the length. So we've got 32 inches. Hitting O for orbit to navigate around. And I'm always going back to this origin point or this magic corner to make all my things. So we've got 32 inches, or R for rectangle, 32 inches, 32 comma, and I believe my apron is 1 inch wide. I'm a 1. Now I zoom in with my mouse wheel and I hit spacebar to select that top pane and I pull up 4 inches my apron using the push pull tool. Okay, so I've made my rectangle. I've push pulled it. Now I need to make it into a component. I can go like that, or I prefer to triple click and hit G for component. I'm going to put short apron demo. create. Now I need one more apron, right? So I'm going to hit spacebar to select, M for move, hold control again to move that part or to copy that part. All right. So now I have all my parts and I just need to put them together. Move the table over so it's not in the way. What I like to do, you know, kind of like when you're assembling a table. I mean, I don't know, I'm no table expert by any means, but when if I'm building something that has an undercarriage, I like to flip it upside down so it's easier to work with. So I'll just show you guys what I'm talking about here. I'm hitting the rotate tool here. If you want to play around with it, it's pretty fun. You click on one point and then you just rotate it around where you want to go. So I'm going to lay it flat on its back, just like this. Now here's the point where if you guys are struggling with these basic functions, I want you to come back to this video later and just practice making components because this next step can get kind of tricky. Let's go back to our overview of what we've been working on and just review what we have so far. We've talked about the orbit and the pan tool, how to navigate around. You hold shift to get to the pan or the grab button and O for orbit to turn the object in 3 dimensions. We have the R for rectangle tool, which allows us to make our basic shapes that we need, like our apron, our legs, our tabletop. We use the push pull to take that rectangle and make it into a box or change the dimensions. And you can do some really crazy stuff with the push pull tool that I think you guys will enjoy if I have time to do it later. And once you do push pull, you take that object and create a component from it, which tells SketchUp not to mess with it unless you want to. And now we're going to get to the point where we've got our components. Now we need to attach them together to make our table, which is probably one of the more challenging parts that we're going to cover tonight. So we're going to assemble this on the table. You guys need to know about components is that when you click this, you've got one, which just, you got space for select. You click it once, that just highlights the object. Double click, and it takes you into editing mode where you can change dimensions if you want to. Um, if you go triple click again, it just highlights the whole thing again. So one click it to select, two to double click, which is good. Now what I like to do is when I'm doing my table and I'm trying to figure out how far away from the edge I want my legs, I double click this and then I'll hit T for tape measure. It brings up that guy. Tape measure is right here. I'm going to go in 1 inch. I'm not going to worry about that measurement. I'm just going to let it go. Hit 1 inch. I'm going to grab this other edge, come in 1 inch, and SketchUp is so smart. If you see, it automatically populates it to 1 inch because it's trying to figure out what you're doing. 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. And I'm going to use those tape measure things as guides that will help SketchUp put the legs in the right places. Now I'm using the orbit and the pan tool to find my legs. And this, you guys, is the most important part of the whole stinking lesson right here, is how to get these objects to line up right. When I hit space and I select this object, you always look for the corners. If you hit M for move and you try to grab this thing, SketchUp doesn't know whether you want it to go vertical, doesn't know whether you want to go horizontal or whatever. And if I just drag it, it's going to put it right in the middle of the object. SketchUp needs help understanding where you want to place it. So I say find the corners. You take this corner and it gives you a purple circle. I don't know if you can see it or not. Oh, the origin of the component. You click it, grab it. We're in M for move right now, by the way. You're going to grab it until it like wants to lock right there. And it says the intersection of the component, and I let it go. It's on the same plane now. We're in the right spot. If I were to grab it from the wrong side of the corner, it's not going to really help me because it's not locking in. You always grab the corner that you want to intersect or grab. And then from here, It's a simple matter of space for select, M for move, grabbing that corner, finding the intersection. And if you guys get it wrong, you can just, move it again and find that corner. And then for here, I hit O for orbit again. And now I'm just going to quickly repeat the same process. I'm finding that corner, that outside corner, and I'm pulling it where it needs to go. Same thing. I find my outside corner, and there. I've already got my table legs offset about an inch. I've got my table, my tabletop, my table legs. Now I need to put my aprons in. And this is where it can get kind of confusing too. And if you guys have better ways of doing this, let me know. What I like to do is, you could do it a couple ways. You could do it the tape measure way, or you could do it the math way. By the way, if you guys want to get rid of these guidelines, you need to understand that you have to go back to this. Do you see how when you click this component, the tabletop, it highlights the tape measure marks? That means that any tape measure marks you made are tied to that component. So you got to double click it. Because watch what happens. If you select it and you go back out here, you hit E for eraser, you can't mess with it. So you got to double click it and then go in and erase these guides. If you want to keep them, that's fine too. I just like to keep it nice and clean personally. Now, I'm trying to get these aprons centered in the middle of these legs so I can put a mortise in. So I'm going to grab my long aprons. I'll do two ways. I'll do the tape measure way and I'll do the math way. I guess you could say the tape measure way works out great for me. So I'm going to double click this item to get into editing mode. I am going to use T for tape measure and I'm going to grab this edge and I'm going to pull it till it finds the center of the leg. You see how it like wants to snap there, 1 inch. I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to hit O for orbit and pan and shift, and I'm going to, and it look, on the inside face of this one, it's going to do it already for me, but I got to go back through and do this. So I got to double click, tape measure, find 1 inch, same here, space for select to undo it, and then it did it for me over there. So when I go to put my apron together with my leg, it will kind of act as a snapper or a way for the program to know where you're going to place the objects. So I'm hitting space for select. I'm grabbing this apron, the end of the component, and I'm dragging it. Oops, I forgot to hit my bottom corner. I'm just going to pull it for now, and I'm going to find that edge. Even though I'm not putting it in the center yet, SketchUp right now is giving me all sorts of things. It's not putting it in the right spot. So I lock it to the edge. Then I can move it where I need to go. For me now, I could simply eyeball this if I wanted to. And oh, I forgot to grab my edge. I can simply grab that bottom edge and move it horizontally. You see how my thing is turning green right there? That's good. That means I'm dragging it horizontally and not up and down. I can eyeball it if I want to. I'll come in and I'll double click this and I'll hit find the center of this so that way it kind of locks for me. And basically you repeat the same process. Oh, looks like I got something going on here. I must have copied the wrong dimensions. You guys can play around with this if you want. Let's see. So how do I fix this? That's a good question. I've already got my table and I've made a mistake. For me, I can come in and I can double click it to edit it. Grab this face right here with select and I'll push pull it till you get to the point where you're going to want it to be. And I'm basically going to do the same thing for every single object that I'm going to do. My apron over here is going to go right there. My um, my apron here is vertical, so I'm going to have to change this, which can be kind of funky sometimes. You go up top and you hit find the rotate. Select that top face right here. You click once, and then you can click again and it will rotate it. It'll give you angles down there, 90 degrees, and then you can basically move it in place where you want to go. So M for move, find where you want to put it. I should have grabbed my corners. There we go. I might have made my leg shorter. I think that was my problem. This is a great tutorial, you guys. Well, my final result ended up looking like, let's see, it looked like this over here. So once everything is done, you have a couple things that you could do with this table. You could highlight the whole stinking thing. You can drag, or if you want, well, it's probably best that you just drag everything and then selecting everything. You might need to shift click. So you click, shift, shift, keep holding shift as you select all your parts and hit G to group the whole thing together. Now when you go to, oh, I didn't get this one too. There we go. Now when you go to rotate this thing, you can move the whole thing at the same time. So that's basically how you make a table. And I know my dimensions didn't come out right because I was just kind of flying with it. But my table worked out pretty well. I've used that basic shape for a lot of things. Um, and then from there, I can take this thing. Once I'm all done, I can make a copy of it. So I'm going to turn this upside down here. What's going on? 80. And take this object. If I want to keep the final thing, that's okay. I'll just click it. I'll hit M for move, control, hold control, and make a copy. Here's a little fun feature too, and I won't go into depth this, but now I can make my cut list. I simply click this one time, I right click it, and I hit explode. And what that does is it takes all the components and it puts it into the individual parts that it was when we made it the first time. Now I could pull my table apart, I can pull my aprons apart, and what I like to do is see if I can find a good let me see if I can find this. Oh, so here's some very simple cabinets that I made before, and I don't have my cut lists with me, but now that I have these items here, I can move them, explode. I can move them and turn them horizontally to make a cart or to make a cut list. If you guys want to know how to make cut lists, search Jay Bates on YouTube. Jay Bates cut list. He does a way better job of explaining it than me. So tonight, I have no idea how long I've been talking. I'm guessing for about 45 minutes. I'm just going to close out with a kind of review of what we've done tonight and go from there. So tonight we talked about the why, talked about money and time. We talked about communication and how communication can save us both money and time. We've used the pan and orbit tool to rotate objects and grab the screen from left to right and kind of act like our eyeballs. We've used the rectangle tool to make our basic dimensions. And then we've taken the push-pull tool to grab those dimensions up and down. We've also used the component tool to make individual components of our table. And then we've worked on assembling those um, pieces together. And you guys, the assembly part, like I said, is kind of tricky. I would also suggest you look at Jay Bates or YouTube videos of how to or how SketchUp behaves because they will do a way better job of explaining it than I do. And I think that's everything for tonight. Um, I will stay on afterwards and answer questions that you guys have. This video is recorded in my because I was going to have parent teacher conferences tonight. Um, but it turns out well, I was able to do them virtually. So uh, on the Facebook, you guys should be able to find my contact info. If you want to message me or email me or call me, I'd be happy to work with you guys on SketchUp. So tonight, I hope you learned a few things, and may hopefully it inspired you to at least try and practice. And I hope you guys come back to this video if you have trouble with certain things. And I hope you have a great night.